When kindness costs respect.
Sometimes the reason people respect you less is not because you were too kind. It is because you kept proving that hurting you would never truly cost them anything. The first chance feels compassionate, the second feels hopeful, but somewhere along the way, your forgiveness stops feeling meaningful and starts feeling expected. And once that happens, your pain loses weight inside the relationship. This is the part many people learn too late. Too many chances do not always reveal love, patience, or emotional strength. Sometimes they reveal something much harder to admit, that your boundary was never seen as real in the first place.
How the pattern begins.
The problem is not that you believed in someone again. The problem is that repeated chances slowly taught them that your disappointment had no final meaning. Every time you stayed, explained, softened, or reopened the door, the relationship changed a little. Not always loudly. Not always in ways you could name right away. But the pattern was forming. Your hurt became familiar. Your boundaries became negotiable. And what once might have felt like grace started functioning like permission. This is why some people can look sorry, sound sincere, and still keep crossing the same line. Because when access remains constant, respect rarely becomes urgent. And when someone no longer fears losing you, they often stop measuring the cost of hurting you at all.
The first chance feels human.
The first chance is usually not the mistake. In many situations, it is the most human thing you can give. People fail, people panic, people act out of fear, stress, immaturity, or confusion. And when you care about someone, it is natural to make room for that. You tell yourself they were overwhelmed. You tell yourself this is not who they really are. You focus on the good parts, the history, the effort, the moments that still feel real. That is why the first chance often feels honest, not foolish. It feels like compassion with context. It feels like emotional maturity. It feels like refusing to judge someone by their worst moment. And sometimes, that first chance is exactly what a healthy relationship needs. Not every mistake should become a final sentence. Not every hurt should end everything immediately. But this is where the danger quietly begins. Because the same empathy that helps you understand pain can also make you explain away patterns that should concern you. You stop asking whether the hurt was serious enough. You start asking whether they meant it. And that subtle shift matters. Because once intention becomes more important than impact, you become more likely to protect their image than protect your own boundary.
When a chance becomes a pattern.
The second chance is where something subtle begins to shift. The first time, you may have been responding to a moment. The second time, you are responding to a pattern, even if you do not want to call it that yet. This is where many people become trapped by their own good intentions. They think they are being fair. They think they are being patient. They think they are giving someone space to grow. But the relationship is already learning something from repetition. It is learning that the line can be crossed, repaired, and crossed again. It is learning that disappointment does not close the door. It only slows things down for a while. And that changes the emotional weight of the boundary itself. Because a boundary that keeps reopening does not feel firm for very long. It starts to feel flexible, then optional, then symbolic. You may still speak seriously. You may still explain your pain clearly. But when the structure around your words does not change, the words begin to lose force. This is why repeated hurt can coexist with repeated apologies for so long. The apology sounds sincere because it may be sincere in the moment. But sincerity without changed behavior does not rebuild respect. It only keeps the cycle emotionally alive. And once someone learns that regret is enough to keep access, they stop needing transformation. They only need the right tone, the right timing, and another chance.
When pain has no consequence.
This is the part people often misunderstand. Respect does not disappear only because someone is selfish or careless. Sometimes it disappears because the relationship quietly teaches them that your pain will not change their access to you. And when pain has no consequence, it slowly loses authority. At first, they may still feel bad. They may still apologize. They may even believe they do not want to hurt you again. But if nothing meaningful changes after the apology, the emotional lesson becomes stronger than the emotion itself. The lesson is simple. This can be survived, not by you, but by them. They can disappoint you, watch you break, say the right words, and still remain in the same position in your life. That is why repeated forgiveness can create a dangerous emotional economy. Your hurt becomes expensive for you, but cheap for them. You carry the confusion, the doubt, the recovery, the effort to understand. They carry a temporary discomfort that passes the moment the door opens again. And over time, that imbalance changes everything. They stop treating your boundary like something that protects value. They start treating it like something that expresses emotion but never enforces reality. That is when respect begins to thin out. Not always with cruelty, not always with obvious contempt, sometimes with calm certainty. The certainty that no matter how disappointed you sound, no matter how wounded you look, the relationship will bend around their behavior again. And once that certainty settles in, your boundary is no longer a limit. It becomes a performance they know will end.
Too much access to little value.
This is why too much access can quietly reduce how seriously people hold you. Not because your worth decreased, but because your availability stayed constant while your standards kept getting negotiated. When someone can keep reaching you, returning to you, leaning on you, and being forgiven by you without truly changing, your presence starts to feel less like something meaningful and more like something guaranteed. And guaranteed, things are rarely handled with the same care as things that can actually be lost. This is why endless availability often creates the opposite of closeness. It creates carelessness, not always on purpose, not always with bad intentions, but still carelessness. Because when someone no longer has to protect the connection, they stop feeling the full weight of having one. They begin to relate to your patience as a resource, not a gift. Your understanding becomes part of the system. Your softness becomes expected. Your return becomes assumed. And that is the hidden cost. You think you are keeping the relationship alive, but you may be training it to survive without respect. Real respect needs friction. It needs limits that remain limits. It needs the possibility that something important can be lost. Without that, people may still want you, need you, even depend on you, but they will not hold you with the same seriousness. Because what always returns is rarely valued at its full weight.
Hope can keep you stuck.
One reason this cycle lasts so long is that many people are not only attached to the person, they are attached to the version of the relationship they keep hoping will return. They are not just holding on to who someone is, they are holding on to who that person was in the beginning, who they could be on a good day, or who they promised to become after every apology. And that makes letting go emotionally confusing, because it does not feel like walking away from something false. It feels like walking away from something unfinished. So instead of asking, what is this relationship consistently teaching me? They ask, what if this is the time it finally changes? That question keeps people stuck for years, not because they are weak, but because hope can be harder to release than pain. Pain at least tells the truth. Hope can keep editing reality. It can make rare good moments feel more important than repeated damage. It can make inconsistency look like progress. It can make potential feel more emotionally powerful than pattern. And when that happens, you do not just keep giving chances to another person. You keep giving chances to a future that has never fully arrived. That is why some people stay far beyond their own limit. They are not only trying to save the connection, they are trying to rescue the meaning they once attached to it. And that private hope can quietly overrule what reality already knows.
The self-respect you lose.
There is also a quieter consequence that people rarely talk about. When you keep reopening the door to someone who keeps crossing the line, you do not only lose their respect, you slowly lose trust in your own signals. At first, your body reacts clearly. You feel hurt. You feel tension. You feel that something is wrong. But when you keep overriding that reaction in order to be understanding, calm, forgiving, or fair, you teach yourself that your own inner alarm is not fully reliable. And that creates a deeper kind of exhaustion. Now, the pain is not only coming from what they did, it is also coming from the fact that you are no longer fully standing with yourself. You begin to feel split. One part of you sees the pattern. Another part keeps negotiating with it. One part wants peace. Another part keeps reopening what already cost too much. That inner division drains self-respect faster than most people realize. Because self-respect is not built only by what you say. It is built by whether your actions continue to stand beside your truth. The moment you keep abandoning what you clearly feel, something inside you starts to go quiet. Not because it healed, but because it learned it would not be heard. And that is why boundaries are not only about how other people treat you, they are also about whether you remain someone your own mind can trust. Without that trust, even kindness starts to feel like self-betrayal.
Kindness needs a limit.
Kindness is not the problem. Compassion is not the problem. Even giving someone another chance is not always the problem. The problem begins when your patience keeps removing the reality of losing you. Because once that reality disappears, respect often fades with it. This is why boundaries matter. Not to punish people, but to make your pain mean something real. If this message found you at the right time, let it stay with you. Being understanding should never require becoming easy to dismiss. And if you have ever learned this lesson the hard way, leave a comment below. Someone else may need that honesty today.